Welcome back. Welcome to another episode. Um, Hold on. I gotta walk past the ducks. I had a good friend come over and help me go up top and help me get loads of lumber from up there and bring it down here because I'm gonna do a Shou Sugi Ban treatment on it all. This lumber came from an neighbor that used to stay in the ranch. If I remember the story correctly, he said that he was going to build a barn with this material, and it's a lot of it. I got a lot of it still up there, but I think it's like maybe 300-400 bucks or something that he let this go for. And it was because they had changed their mind and decided to go with a shut up. Decided to go with a metal barn. So that's how I got the lumber, and it's been sitting in a stack for about, I don't know. I think it's been up there for about, now it's been almost 5 years now. I've noticed that it's gotten some cracks and things like that in it. So I was like, okay, you need to use this or lose it. And that's what I'm doing. So before I even start the build is to get this wood preserved. Things always change, so I brought down enough for what I think, for what I know to at least get the job started. And if I happen to need any more, then I know I can just, get back up there and get it at another time. But I know this will definitely get me going. I think with this one, the first thing I saw was the fact that the bowing on this, it's been sitting up top so long that it's starting to try to bow a bit. And I set it down with I guess the crown of the bow underneath. And then this is where it kind of hooks. So this is basically in the sense, the U shape. And if I put the camera here, hope you can probably see it. And if not, you'll see it better with this. And that's what I'm trying to basically clear out, is going down this whole line and not having that gap. So the plan is to start sanding on both sides, both edges over here, like this here, where my thumb is going across, and bring down that gap so that I want to be able to slide this down this beam and have no gap in between there like that. If I can manage that, then what I've done is taken the fact that it's starting to attempt to bow out of it. And I'm not losing too much anyway because this is a very substantial piece of lumber. So sanding down this edge and that edge over there to bring it down even won't really hurt it. And then I'll just flip it over on the other side. The work will be done more so in the center. So I'll just kind of run down the center of it with the sander. I'll get a thick grade of sanding paper on there, and then should, in theory, get this lumber fairly smooth and evened. And that's what I plan to do with all the different pieces. Uh, the 4 bys, the 6 bys, same thing with these. So that's the plan for at least the flat boards that I'm working on. And then all the 4 bys and 6 bys, I'll do this pretty much the exact same scenario on 4 sides instead of 2 sides. I'll probably hit the sides as well, just because I'm sanding, but it won't be anything more than just a light gray paper to just kind of even it off and smooth it off and bring it to the same texture as everything else that I'm going to be sanding, so that that way when I apply that linseed oil, it should absorb in there fairly evenly. Okay, so thank you for making it this far. I do appreciate it. However, this is where I'm going to have to jump in again and do a little narration. I was building this to shelter a horse that I was going to get. It was supposed to be a one horse stable and a walk under. But when I found out halfway through the build that I wasn't going to actually be getting the horse, well, that's when I changed up a few things. Maybe the universe is looking out for me. I probably really didn't need the horse. That's just very heavy cost overall to maintain a horse. And I don't know what I was thinking. I wanted to continue to do things and stay active, even though I couldn't afford a lot of the materials I needed to continue on the Earthship. But I did have this lumber, and that made me erase the day-to-day drama out of my head that I was dealing with the eunuch and the thing over there next door. So clearly, the universe, something was looking out for me, because it popped in my head that, hey, you have these goats. The whole concept of my goats was getting them all registered, start breeding Nigerian dwarfs. But I figured, well, they're already in a tight little pen, decent size, but why don't I now just go ahead and repurpose this structure for something that I do have that I can use it for? And it's not just a waste of my time. So instead of having it as a horse shelter, it became the new goat sanctuary. So what you're seeing right now is the finished Shou Sugi Ban treated lumber, and I'm putting up all the vertical posts. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. It is hell with a lot of these builds, because building something by yourself and trying to measure things to get it exact, and it's a lot. You got to come up with a lot of creative ways to have a structure come up correctly without falling all back down. It just takes a lot. One of the examples where I had to screw in a long 6-inch screw and lean the post or the beam up against that, and then go down to the other end and lift it up. I had to go back and forth like that with that particular post and other ones like that, just to make sure I got them even. So this is just something I come up with that I've been using on a few of my builds, the different coops and pins and things. And it gives me something to create a higher point for my rafters to attach to, so that I can get just an ever so slight lean to, enough to make sure that the water pour to one direction. Again, working on my own, working on myself, it's easier to just, for me at least, to connect a few 4x4s together with 2x4s. So you stagger the seams with 2x4s, and I can put that on the top, and that gives me one even solid surface going across that I attach to the vertical beams, that allows for me to then attach my rafters to. You'll see it a little bit better in the next few frames. Now, I'll be straight up. One of the things I truly love about doing these Shou Sugi Ban treatments on wood, besides the fact that it actually preserves the wood, the look of the actual wood or lumber or what have you, when you first burn it, just seeing those patterns come out is just so beautiful. And then when you put a little oil over that, it's just something so unique that I love. And I plan on doing a lot of these treatments on just about every piece of wood that's going to go into the Earthship build. So at this point, I just burned it. It hasn't been brushed off or oiled. Now, at first, I wasn't all that concerned with doing any type of treatments on the inside because the thinking was it was going to be a horse in there. And I don't recall learning or knowing or finding out that horses will typically rub up against the walls. And if they do, I know it was nowhere near as much as what I've learned from goats. So I decided that treating the inside walls would probably benefit me more than not. You're seeing another example of my work being offset by trying to do it myself, having to fix a situation that resulted from me not getting measurements right, just trying to work and do all these things by myself. However, I always end up coming up with some sort of creative way to fix the situation. For instance, in this particular screw up, I was able to cut out a section of the 6x6 posts and fit the 2x4 right on in there, nice and snug. Now, since plans changed, I did have to do a little redesigning inside. Instead of just having an open space, I had to create a space for the hay and a space for the goats to actually live. So I put down some thick meal plastic, a vapor barrier, and then created a floating floor just to keep air flowing around the hay, and then threw on some plywood on top of that. Nigerian dwarfs aren't large goats at all, so this was actually a very good space for the goats. Then I created a little watering setup and kind of just went from there, just kind of got creative. So the setup actually worked pretty well. I hacked away at this particular bush that I was pruning to become a tree, and now I can water it when I drain out the water container. Now, even though I did treat the mass majority of the interior walls, I did have a couple of panels of roofing that was left over. So I decided, since I knew that they were going to go ahead and rub up against the walls, I decided to cut the panels in pieces and place them around the walls to give them something to rub up against and not the actual wood itself. So yeah, since there was going to be no horse in there, I went on and pulled down the barbless wire and replaced that with no climb fencing. And I'll tell you, this was another part of the project that was new to me because I've never run this type of fencing, and especially not this amount of fencing. And doing it by myself and not having a tractor or side by side or anything else, I had to pull all this manually, which meant that I had to once again become creative and find ways to do that. And I think I was pretty successful at it. I'm very happy with the way it turned out, and I learned a lot. I really did. Out here in the desert, water is essential. So every structure that I build, I'm learning to make sure that it has a lean-to roofing system. I want to be able to capture any mist, rain, any type of moisture. I went through my scrap pile and I found some PVC pieces of various sizes, and I just kind of jimmied together a gutter system that could collect the water. I created a first flush, which will collect all the sediment or solids off the roof and drop it down into the big solid pipe. And then as the water rises up, the cleaner water will go across through the pipe and off and into the IBC tote. And there's a valve that I can open that'll allow the sediment to go ahead and flush right out. And that's the main water source that I use for filling up the dogs' bowls as well as the goats' water. I also moved in 3 of the livestock guardian dogs, just as a little extra layer of protection. The dogs really love the goats and they love to play with them, but I don't want to stress the goats out any, so I decided to have a system where there's always at least 2 dogs on leashes contained, and then there's one that roams as a kind of a backup to the ones that's being contained. I just always fear a dog being attacked while on leash kind of thing. And then I'll just every few days I'll rotate the dogs. And it's been working wonderfully actually. Thank you again so much, folks, for just hanging out with me and checking out my videos. I do apologize again for all the mismatch and lost footage, but I want to get through all of it, and I'm doing my best to make it all make sense. Once that's all said and done and over with, then we'll get back to some normal footage. Until then, thank you again. You folks have a beautiful and blessed day, and try to find your quality of life and live it to the fullest.